Most breaches are caused by exploiting oversights in basic cybersecurity fundamentals, but complex hybrid multi-cloud infrastructures make cybersecurity hygiene challenging. Red Seal can help. It shows you what's on your network, how it's connected, and the associated risk across public cloud, private cloud, and physical environments. With Red Seal, you'll get control of your cybersecurity fundamentals so you can protect your organization from the inevitable attack vectors and reduce your cyber risk. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/Red Seal.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Paul Asadorian and Jason Albuquerque. Join us at InfoSec World 2020, June 22nd to 24th, now a fully virtual event. Security Weekly listeners save 15% off the InfoSec World Main Conference or World Pass. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2020. Click the register button to register with our discount code. Also, we are looking for high-quality guest suggestions for all of our podcasts to fill our Q3 recording schedule. Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and submitting the form. We review the suggestions monthly and will reach out to you once you have been reviewed and approved. All right, gentlemen, some articles this week. We're starting to get back to normal, not quite. Still a lot of...
Kinda.
Kinda.
Not as normal as I'd like it. Otherwise, I'd be sitting next to Paul right now.
Right.
I know.
I
Tell
miss
me
my
about
hugs,
it.
guys. I miss my hugs.
Yes, so do I. I'm not afraid anytime. So the first article talks about CISO position burnout. We've covered articles like this before, but look, in an environment like this, I don't know how the stress levels for some of you CISOs are just got to be through the roof.
Oh, agreed. I mean, now you're throwing this on top of the stress that already existed. Now you're throwing this
Right.
massive disruption into play, right? So think about it. I mean, CISOs and security professionals already had an immense amount of stress dealing with, not enough resources, not enough budget, not being able to influence the culture. And at the end of the day, as a security professional, at least every single security professional that I've met takes their job extremely seriously, right? I mean, they want to make sure they're really focused on changing the company, making it more secure, building a culture. So that was an existing stress. Now blow up the fact that everything that they were doing has now spawned out to every single user they have's home, right?
See,
so now that just adds more stress on top of it.
That's where I like having folks like Jason that have a background in the military to help put things in perspective for a couple of reasons, right? Number one, in our daily jobs, even with this crisis going on, there's likely not anyone shooting at you, right? And I mean,
100%.
Huge props and so much love to all those people that do that for our freedom. But the other thing is when you take the lessons from those folks like Jocko and others, their big thing is prioritize and execute, right? Not just having people running around doing everything. We saw kind of in the Equifax situation, it sounded like there was a lot of chaos, a lot of people running around trying to, oh my God, there's a cert missing over here and vulnerability scan results over here, right? And there was a lot of chaos. I think that some of those lessons that we've learned from those great books like Extreme Ownership and the like, really help us kind of focus as a leader. You need to come in and prioritize, help the teams prioritize and execute, right? And Jason, that was when we talked about early on when you started coming on the show and kind of compared notes. I'm like, I was not in the military. However, when I read these books, I'm like, yes, these are valuable lessons we take into the enterprise.
Yeah, and you got it dead right. I mean, I've had people throughout my career say, I can't understand why you're not so stressed all the time and why you have a smile on your face. I said, listen, number one, I don't have a bullet flying through the air at me. So I'm good to go. You hit the nail on the head, right? And everything else we can compartmentalize. We can build a structure around, we can build a process around, and we can prioritize, right? And that's the key. I mean, it's really prioritizing the most important things, bubbling it to the top, taking care of those, and then start backfilling that next priority into play. Because ultimately, your team can get overburdened. If you try to throw the kitchen sink at your entire team to have them try to tackle it, you're never going to get anywhere.
You're just going to cause more chaos.
They're going to try to get everything done all at once. So it's setting the priority, it's giving the mission to the team, having them execute well on that mission, then bringing in that next mission.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this has to do with finding the right match of the right CISO for the right company and vice versa, right? Each organization is going to have I think it's kind of ideal candidate. And I think candidates also have to really understand their ideal company for there to be a good fit that also helps reduce some of the stress and burden.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Matt. I mean, I think in a lot of instances, people like to shoot for that next layer up. So they're shooting for that CISO role or VP of security, and you get excited for it. You get excited to want to become that leader, but you still have to do the due diligence to make sure you're a right fit for the organization. And by the way, the organization's a right fit for you, right? Because you could be walking in the door with a certain expectation that you're going to come in and be a strategic CISO aligned to the business, be a change agent, be transformational and innovative, and maybe they need a tactical operational person, right? So you really want to make sure you're a good fit. Otherwise, you're going to get into the role and it's going to be nothing that you expected and it won't be successful.
It's similar to my comments on the next story, actually.
Yeah, exactly. The 7 rules for staying productive long term, right? I mean, this, again, you've got to have that right fit. Now, there's lots of systems out there. This isn't talking about the systems. This is just talking about, here's some of the things you need to think about regardless of your system to stay productive. And if you're in the wrong environment, these are going to be really, really hard to accomplish.
Well, I think, as Jason's point, when you're switching environments, even switching projects or roles, I've carried over a lot of bad habits, you know what I mean, that fortunately, you recognize some of those. But I also think for security professionals, right, that may come from similar backgrounds as many of us, being in operations, being in the firefight of this system's down, this system's hacked, right, as you progress in your career, you can't always tackle every challenge as we have to be tactical, like Jason said, and we have to go after, right? And what's the next thing we have to do, right? Mm-hmm. There are times where you have to learn you're not always in that environment, and this is a time to step back, really create requirements, really do maybe testing, and have a different system to be productive. And it feels weird at first. Like, I'm not being productive because I'm not closing tickets and I'm not applying patches and rebooting systems, right? But you are being productive in that you're planning, developing requirements, and then executing on them.
Yeah, I mean, this article goes into it really well, right? There's different kind of systems that people employ, and it's, you start building the way you react to other people's pressure. So business units coming at you, your peers coming at you, or depending, you could build the way you react to your feeling or your mood of the day. And then there's the one that I consider the most successful, built by design, right? You're actually building the way you handle these things by design. So that way you can filter out all that noise and truly prioritize what matters. And hey, by the way, allow you to step back a little bit and be a leader. To do that, you really do have to let go a little bit, like you said, Paul. I try to look at it in a fashion when I step into a leadership role is I have to be okay now taking a step back and becoming that conductor of the orchestra. I'm never going to be the expert at the violin. I'm never going to be the expert at the oboe. I'm going to bring them in and they're going to compliment me. I have to make beautiful music with all these different instruments in the orchestra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like the analogy.
It's a good analogy.
Because I don't play an instrument. So the best I could ever do is be the conductor. No,
you sell yourself short though, Matt, because you've written software before, so you understand the process, right? The time, you remember doing that. So I also think it's important to have done some of those roles, right? Yeah. So you can gain that's an easier way to gain confidence than some of the other ways, right? I think it's kind of that instant confidence, like I've set up the sets before, right? When it was just me, right? And now there's a team. So, right now a team of 1. We're hiring, by the way.
Well, one other thing, gents, that I wanted to kind of touch base before we go on to the other article is from the CISO burnout perspective, mental health for me in that stress on the CISO and making sure, psychologically everybody's in a good place on my team. And myself, one thing I want to stress to security leaders out there is take care of yourself, right? Put yourself first, because a lot of folks are really committed. They want to put as much possible time as they can into their job. But if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not sleeping and eating healthy and trying to do some exercise, spending time with your family, disconnecting a little bit, you're going to get overrun by it, right? I can't stress enough. Just take care of yourself. Do things for you.
Yes. No, it's great advice. I mean, you have to get that downtime. You've got to think about taking care of yourself and getting away when you
It's a
can.
must. It's a must.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, your comment leads me into these next three articles. They're all work related. They're all about employees and kind of the workforce going forward. And I strung them together in an interesting way because the first article talks about we're probably not going back to pack skyscrapers and what this means from a remote perspective. And then the second one talks about some of the remote statistics we're starting to see, right? We're definitely going to see a shift in the way the workforce goes. And then the last one pulls in, this might be an interesting opportunity if you have the positions to go get some really, really good talent because there's a shift in the market happening. Not only do we have, I think, something like 30 million unemployed right now over the past few weeks, people are also reevaluating their careers, whether they want to be in a building or more apt to remote, and they're starting to look. And so it might be a really interesting time if you can do it to find some really good talent.
I think it's a really positive thing. At least I'll look at the positive aspects of it in that I was thinking about this myself. Like if you're hiring right now and your requirement was, I think this person needs to be in the building. Well, now that your building's empty and things are happening, I bet your requirements, like ours, right, might have shifted to go, yeah, you know what? I think this position can be remote. I think there's going to be positions that have to be in the building. Right? Just because that's the nature of your job. If you've got someone doing on a manufacturing floor, that person has to be there to physically operate the machine. Outside of that, in IT and security especially, I think there's a lot more opportunity for everyone, not just in the U.S. either. I think that those barriers to entry that many companies see and face with hiring people from other countries, they may be like, you know what? Maybe it's time to do that. And their hesitation, right, wasn't, I got to fill out a bunch of paperwork. It was, I don't know if I want that many remote employees.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I mean, we've talked about this probably the last 2 or 3 shows. You're going to have leaders in organizations, whether board of directors, CEOs, CFOs, saying, why the hell do I have so many brick and mortar buildings here? We've been functioning for the last 3 months or 4 months or whatever the case may be, in this remote operations. We've been successful. Why do we have brick and mortar? Why do we have skyscrapers? Why do we have 150,000 square feet of space? Right. So you're going to have people thinking about that and really taking a strategy around probably diminishing some of that space that they own, some of that real estate.
And I think that's going to be gobbled up by shared spaces, right?
Sure.
Not just like WeWork shared workspaces, but spaces where you can have your weekly company meetings, right? And you're rotating that through dozens of companies, right? I don't think a lot of the space is going to go to waste. I think a lot of it's going to be, we're all working remote, but, once a week we all get together rather than, do we need to work 40 hours a week all crammed in the same place?
Agreed.
Yeah, that's the last article, right? Is that survey from 305 U.S. CFOs and financial execs. Those are some of the stats we're starting to see come out of this, right? Is, more than 3/4 of organizations plan to change workforce safety measures requirements. 65% plan to rework sites, right? Half plan to make remote work a permanent option, which leads, which ties into the previous articles about remote work and now going to get some new workforce. 1/4 are considering real estate footprint reductions because they don't need the physical space anymore, right? So these are all going to have an impact on kind of how work happens going forward, and you're already starting to see some of the stats coming out. Again, it's a shift. And so that ties in that last article. But I want to go to the second to last article, which is now's the unprecedented opportunity to hire great talent, right? So this article gives you some really interesting tips, steps to kind of walk through. Like right now, here's what you should be doing to think about where do you have gaps, and here's the process you should go through. And I thought this was a really interesting list that I wanted to highlight because if 68% of organizations are hiring and 43% of the workforce is looking, now is the time to go find those ideal candidates.
Exactly, 100%. And the one I loved here was, go back to go to the way back machine and look for folks that you tried to hire and maybe couldn't, right? Maybe they took another position somewhere. Maybe it just didn't align, wasn't the right place at the right time, but it was a candidate that you loved. go back to that Wayback Machine and see what's going on in their lives now. They could be in hospitality. They could be in some industry that was impacted by this. Go try to find them. And hey, guess what? Now you have the opportunity to say, this role could be remote too, so you don't even have to move.
Right.
Right. Yeah, like my daughter is graduating in less than 2 weeks in hospitality management. There's not a lot of job opportunities out there for people in the hospitality management space, right? I mean, hotels are shut down, events are canceled. But, so these people are laid off and looking. Now might be a good time to pull them in. It might be time to find some very interesting candidates coming out of school that maybe are in non-traditional positions that still provide a benefit to the organization. There is going to be a lot of talent out there, and I think it's just really prioritizing how do you go look for that talent.
Yeah, and that was one of the pieces of the article too. Set up a task force to go scouting, right? Whether it's somebody on your team coupled with HR and recruiting, get a task force out there and start sourcing, start targeting, certain industries or companies, and hit that hard.
Yeah, definitely interesting times going forward. I can't wait to get back into studio with you gentlemen so we can have some fun together. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. And we'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.